Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's your host, Terry. So, this is really bizarre. Well, maybe not. So this England truck is right in front of me backing in to my right. And when he swung around to set up, I noticed that there was a Nevada state trooper that followed him in here. Or maybe just came in. I'll report his developments, Warren. So anyway, B and I are here in Wells, Nevada at the Loves. Wells actually has 3 decent-sized truck stops: Loves, Flying J, and a Petro. So you got, every one of the big companies. So anyway. Little bit about Wells and Wells is actually in Elko County. Elko's down the road a little bit. So Elko was, even though these 2 towns, Wells and Elko, are on the California Trail, they really didn't exist because of the California Trail. Okay, the troopers continuing to go, so it wasn't the England guy he was concerned about, and maybe he's just patrolling, I don't know. So the California Trail came through here, and lots of people passed this way, and but these towns weren't necessarily here in their, the form that they would later take. So both towns are kind of on the Humboldt River, and there was a place here in Wells called Humboldt Wells, which was an area just outside of town that, access to water was pretty easy. And so that was a stopping point. And that's like a swampy area that actually caught on fire somehow, brush fire, I guess, years after the California Trail was kind of supplanted by the Transcontinental Railroad. And somebody sent out a telegraph message saying Wells is burning. And that's how the town ended up being called just Wells and not Humboldt Wells. And there are, it's not a huge town. Elko is a pretty good sized town for being out in the middle of nowhere. It's the biggest town between Salt Lake City and Reno. So it's bigger than Winnemucca. And estimates are there are about 20,000 people there. But Elko really wasn't around until about 1868, which was essentially the year before the Golden Spike was hammered in at Promontory, Utah, which was the completion of the 2 sides, if you will, of the Transcontinental Railroad. But Elko, it's still kind of a transportation hub. There are some casinos there. And because Elko County, and I didn't know, I knew prostitution was legal in certain parts of Nevada, but apparently under Nevada law, if a county has less than 400,000 people, the county can opt to license brothels. So apparently there are some brothels in Elko. I've never actually stopped in Elko because they don't have a Love's, and I typically stop at Love's. But just FYI, if you're in Elko, prostitution is legal. That's also why their prostitution is not legal in Las Vegas, because Las Vegas is in Clark County, Nevada, and Clark County is significantly more than 400,000 people. And I'm guessing the county that Reno is in, and I don't know what county that is, I'm guessing there are probably 400,000 or more there. So it's only places that have less than 400,000 in population. But anyway, so this was like, these towns kind of came around because of the Transcontinental Railroad. And, you know, real quick, I've talked often about transportation because that's the business that I'm in. But going back to rivers and canals and railroads, this country's lifeblood really is transportation. Our ability to move goods from sources to markets has been an economic strength of this country since its founding. And so the Transcontinental Railroad was a huge deal, and all that railroad was all built on government land. So really the U.S. taxpayers provided all the land for the railroad. Now the railroad was, who met in Promontory, Utah in 1869 were two major railroads, the Central Pacific Railroad and the Union Pacific Railroad. However, there was a third railroad involved, and that was the Western Pacific Railroad, and they built the far western end of the Transcontinental Railroad from Oakland, so on the east side of San Francisco Bay, to Sacramento. Central Pacific took it from Sacramento to Utah, and then the Union Pacific handled the vast majority of it from Utah all the way to Council Bluffs, Iowa. Of course, the only company that is still around is the Union Pacific. But interestingly, the president of the Central Pacific is the guy who drove in the so-called Golden Spike. And that guy's name was Leland Stanford. And if that name sounds familiar, that's because the guy founded Stanford University. So his railroad hasn't survived this long, that he was president of, but the university named after him has. So anyway, that's a little bit of transportation and history of Elko County, Nevada. So yeah, tomorrow we'll head north up to American Falls, Idaho, get rid of this load of yams. And I know I'm not supposed to talk about, what I'm carrying in real time, but, first of all, I've never had any cargo stolen or anything like that. I've never had a trailer breached. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if somebody's really gonna go to the trouble to break in my trailer for some sweet potatoes, I'm almost like, I'd rather just give them some money so they could buy some sweet potatoes or whatever they want for dinner, because that's the only reason I can think of somebody wanting. Because they're not even, this is a bulk load. It's just a pile in there. So anyway, if you've hauled the bulk load produce, you know what I'm talking about. Whether it's green beans, potatoes, sweet potatoes, whatever it is, So anyway, we'll drop this stuff off tomorrow and I'm sure get another load, because apparently we're overbooked here at Prime Inc. But one thing I wanted to talk about in real quick is, I've always wanted to help people by empowering them, by showing them their potential, or by pointing it out to them. And I did a video the other day where I said, don't let somebody recommend a shortcut to you if they haven't taken the shortcut. And I kind of related it to trucking, but it's also kind of a metaphor, or maybe a parable that we can use as a life lesson. And the reason I say that is this: I say things on my channel, on this channel, that I think will benefit people that are starting their own business, changing careers. A lot of people in trucking are really extricating themselves from bad situations, whether it's poverty, whether it's a bad marriage, whether it's just they got to start over. And so you meet a lot of different people. And I've given advice professionally over the years, both in the military, but as an attorney. But the difference between what I'm doing now and what I did in those other two roles is I don't have a feedback loop here. I mean, I do in some ways because people comment, people reach out to me via email. So, if somebody reaches out to me and I feel like they're, kind of on the up and up, I'll text them or give them my mobile number and stuff because I really do want to help people. But what I want to say is that don't take a shortcut that somebody recommends if they haven't taken that shortcut. So sometimes you will get advice from well-meaning people, including me, that might not be the best advice. It might be a shortcut that we know of, or it might be a shortcut that we've taken. But in either case, it might not be the best route for you to take to get where you're going. And here's an example. If I said, I have never done flatbed. So sometimes if I say something, that might not make sense for somebody that's an independent, owner-operator that's doing flatbed. And they might say, well, here's why that's a bad idea. And so that's important to remember. Like I don't have all the answers, and I don't think people think I do. So that's a shortcut that I haven't even taken. But sometimes I have taken shortcuts, but it's going to be really hard for somebody else to do that. Because let's say that I took the shortcut and there was 1.5 feet of snow on the road, but I had a 4-wheel drive pickup truck when I took the shortcut. Well, if you're just driving your, Toyota Corolla, that shortcut is not going to be good for you. It's not going to save you time. So that's true in setting up your business or getting started doing something or feeling, like how you want to get into trucking. I had different life experience than some people. Everybody brings something different to the table. It's all valuable. But some people are going to, like people would say, like a duck takes to water. Some people are going to come into this industry and not a lot is going to frazzle them or, be like super impactful. But other people who have different life experiences and have to carry different burdens, it's going to be different for them. It's going to be either harder or easier. Some people have medical issues, but they still want to drive a truck. Some people have, like I worked with a guy at Estes that would have liked to have been a truck driver because he would have made more money than what he was doing, but he couldn't go beyond being a jockey and doing that because he had a special needs kid, and so somebody had to be home. So he worked, graveyard shift, got home before his wife went off to work, and he basically stayed up all day during the daylight until his wife got back from work at like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and then he slept till like midnight. But that was his reality. And he made good money, but not great money. He was a high school dropout, got the girlfriend pregnant type of thing, and he was a super guy, very conscientious worker, but he couldn't do this job. It wouldn't. I guess unless he made so much money that his wife could quit working or whatever. But it's everybody's got a different story, and so my message, and not to beat a dead horse here, is your story matters and your life experience matters. And if somebody like, if somebody like me comes along and says, oh, well, here's how you do that, that might be the right answer, but it might not be the right answer for you, if that makes sense. So anyway, I hope this, and by the way, I'm more than happy to talk to people and see if we can, if they're like, well, how should I go about this? I mean, and I'm really super attuned. I always have my radar up for stuff that sounds too good to be true or sounds bad. And there's this channel that I come across periodically where this person is like, I thought they were a truck driver, but now it seems like they're a leasing agent, and they basically get paid to place people in leases or purchases. And that was like, that made my spidey sense kind of come up, and I'm like, so this person has a following, but has created like a middleman situation, and is getting a finder's fee, I bet, and like I always tell people, when somebody's working on a commission, you got to be really careful about, figuring out what's driving them, because they're not going to be looking out for your best interest most of the time, unless they have a legal obligation to be a fiduciary. And if you got questions about that, just ask. I'll explain how that works. But anyway, I hope everybody's having a good weekend. It's supposed to be getting pretty hot, so take care of your truck. Take care of your truck. Make sure it's got plenty of good clean oil and your coolant's filled up, and take care of yourself. But taking care of your truck will make taking care of yourself a lot easier. So anyway, hope everybody's doing well. And by the way, today's Saturday, so Monday is the 14th, and I'm gonna do a thing about Flag Day. So I hope you'll tune in for that. It's gonna be a little controversial, but I'm gonna say some things that might maybe rub some people the wrong way. But I'm gonna explain. I'll explain everything I'm thinking, and hopefully people will tune into that and give me some feedback and their thoughts, and maybe this will create some thinking too. So anyway, Flag Day special. Unless something really cool happens tomorrow, I'll probably take the day off. But everybody be safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.